Yeah, this is service binding operator developer meetings today, February 18. Yeah, let's start the discussion. Okay. So I think the first agenda item we have here is to discuss about the PR from Akash, that is 875. Akash, can you?
Yeah, sure. So I'll just quickly share my screen.
In the meantime, could you please all put your names in the attendee list, in the agenda? Thank you.
Yeah, so I wanted to discuss about the bug which was reported some time back. So this is so we have fixed this bug. So I just wanted to explain what was happening, what was the issue. So if we have the CRD descriptor or annotation written in specific manner, in this specific manner, and if you want to fetch, if you want to extract a value from config map or secret, so and if we have defined the source key, I mean the key from which value needs to be fetched, if we specify that value along with the config map reference, so that is where the issue was getting. So what I'll just explain. So in this example, we have this particular path to config map, and we are explicitly specifying that this is a config map, and we want to fetch value from this particular config map and from this particular key. Um, so let's say this is a CR. This is a CR example where we have the config map reference specified under the same path which we have specified here, and this is a config map details where we have data field, and then under that we have this certificate field with the certificate value. So this is what we are exactly specifying here in this annotation, that we want to fetch the value from certificate key, which is this key. And this is where we are, when we create this particular SBR, we expect that we want to have the this particular information in the intermediate secret. So this is what was not being this is what not being successfully done in the previous builds. So just to fix that, I've raised PR which was just got merged this week, and which will be a part of our upcoming release. So this is a particular PR which fixes this. To fix it, I basically, so earlier the implementation was making use of source value instead of making use of source key. So the fix was just to check if there is a value specified for the source key. I'll just open the issue in another tab. So in this example, this particular example, we are using source key, which is the expected behavior according to the Kubernetes specs, binding specs. And earlier we were making use of source value instead of source key. So in the fix, I'm just checking if source value is present, just take that one. Otherwise, take whatever is there in the source key. So this is how I'm actually fixing this issue. Yeah, we have updated the acceptance test and unit test to just to identify the issue if we face this particular issue in the future. So yeah, I think that's all about the discussion. Is there any question?
Thanks, Akash.
Yeah.
So the what we have now for the just for the FY is now aligned to the spec. So spec has support for the source key extracting a particular key from a secret or a config map and putting in the mining information.
Any other question? Otherwise, let's go to the second topic, that is to discuss about the 0.5.0 milestone. Okay, I'll share my
Yes,
screen.
so,
Let me share
right.
my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, I hope you can see my screen. Yeah, good that we have all the issues closed for this 0.5. So that
Yeah,
means we're
so
ready for a release now.
we can maybe just click on the close as we see what's inside.
Yeah, yeah.
So as mentioned last week, so we were about to release 0.5. It was a bit prolonged, postponed due to this bug fix we were waiting from Akash. It was important to get it in because we have people who are depending on this. But right now, so I think we have completed the test. Unless is there anything more urgent thing reported now by the group? We are going to start this week the release process. So we're gonna first submit the pull request to the upstream operator hub to include the 0.5 release into their index, and later on we are going to also publish the very same version to the Red Hat catalog as well. The important thing apart from introducing custom naming strategy and fixing a couple of bugs, other important change, which is actually breaking API change, is the update of a group API name. That was necessary because the current group or previous group API name didn't allow us to deploy webhooks. So although it looks like as a really breaking API change, the change is only in the group API name, which means the clients who are submitting the request, so they need only to change the group name in the request, and everything else remains the same.
Yeah, Predrag, one quick question regarding this. I think this title is still wrong, right? We are supporting both GVK as well as GVR, right?
Oh yeah, right. So we also relaxed conditions there as well. There was a kind of misalignment between service references in the service binding and the application reference. So service reference were referred using group version kind triple and application group version resources. So now the spec uses for both cases group version kind. And in order to relax things and not really introduce a big breaking API change, we introduce both possibilities on both sides. So right now you can, I mean, there is no any breaking API change, but you can now refer services via group version resources triple, and applications could be referred via group version kind as well. So you have like both possibilities.
Is this okay? Can I change the title? Oh, you can't read. Sorry, I changed the title to make service API to use both GVR and GVK.
Well,
Otherwise, please change it so that it will be easy to.
okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, I'm changing it. Okay. And is there any other thing that we need more, any discussion on this 0.5.0? So, okay, as you know, and we don't have any other items listed, but if anybody has anything to discuss about any recently added issue or anything, we can do that. I can see some newly added issues with some discussion. So anybody want to bring attention to any particular issue?
I would like just to ask John while we are all here. So, what is the? I mean, you mentioned like some times ago that you're gonna start working on Strimzi operator, like better alignment with the service binding. Is there any progress on that front?
I think they're working on it, um, but they haven't showcased anything yet, so I don't think it's ready.
Is there
Yeah,
any PR somewhere we can track or watch?
so I put the PR in the issue description.
Okay.
The one that they were working on. So that's the one I use. And I know some other people are interested, so yeah, I haven't heard any progress.
All right.
Which is the issue number that we're discussing? I don't know. Is there any issue for this one or
I think it's 847.
eight?
Right.
1 second. Okay, right. So this is the same PR that he was referring, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I also think there was the issue number 852 that I created.
Eight, right.
So about the workflow, like when we start the operator, it's sort of like in service binding operator, you when it starts, you set up a list of resources you want to watch. So in the service binding operator code, you, for example, listen to changes on service binding resources. So you watch them. We sort of do the same thing in our operator, but the problem is that if you set up a watch, so on the service binding resources, and the SBO hasn't been installed yet, it's going to error, right? So it imposes the restriction that the operator needs to be installed after SBO, right? So one way to work around that is to watch on sub resources. So like instead of watching on service binding resources, we watch secret resources, and you would filter on like labels. That's so it sort of alleviates the constraint of installing SBO before our operator. I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but
Would it be not easier to watch on a cluster service version resource, and then with that you can detect if the service binding operator gets installed?
so you like watch if it's get installed, and then like re-trigger watch the resources. Is that what you're?
Yeah, like something like that. Like because if you're watching for secrets, you're gonna watch for plenty of secrets. This is going to generate you thousands of events, unnecessary events, I would say.
Yeah, except if you filter on like if because you can add some labels to filter on which secrets you get notified with. And so that's why I was asking to copy the labels from the service binding that we create, and we add like some labels to say that it's ours, sort of that we created it. And so if you copy it into the intermediary secret, that would filter only secrets that we're interested in.
Can you? I mean, what that would be interesting to understand more. Like, what is the scenario? How do you actually consume that secret, which is created by the service binding operator? Service binding operator doesn't inject it directly into some application.
No, so like the drawback we saw, I mean, with that approach is that you have to force a pod restart, and so if you inject it yourself and you build your pod, it startups nicely. So that's the approach we used. Yeah.
Just need little more clarity. So instead of pod, you're going to keep this injected into some other resource, like a custom resource or something.
The secret?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're mounting it in the pod, just like any other secret.
Yeah,
And
but
then-
You really create
service
pods or
binding
not
operator does
deployments?
that work, right?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
The service binding operator does that injection. So why do we need yet another?
So because so the way it did that, at least before, is that it would start off. You would have to start off the deployment, and then it would have to restart it, and like was scaling up and down, if I remember correctly. I don't know if it's still the case. So that was one way of avoiding that. And the other reason was we were as an operator handling those deployments, so we wanted sort of to remain the sole owner of those of that deployment resource. So we would sort of control everything.
Yeah.
So you don't want that other operators inject secrets as volumes.
Yeah, because we were getting notified, and we were doing some checks that the deployment was as we wanted to. So it was just creating a lot of problems because we were expecting the deployment to be a certain way, and the SBO was modifying that, and so we would have to like create a sort of exception case that, oh, it's okay, it's the SBO who modified it, and it was just a little more work.
Yeah.
And it's sort of in the specification too, with the custom projection. So I think it's sort of expected. I think.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. Even the spec has some, something similar to support this kind of scenarios. So maybe I don't know whether we can look into that kind of API changes. Let me take this spec and see that. But that's I feel it's a bit complex or probably an overkill in this custom projection. This could be an overkill for some of the implementation, but looks in a very advanced way of handling this kind of scenarios. Do you think this kind of things you will be interested in the SBO itself?
For now, it's not the intermediary secret because it does, it's sort of like the same. It achieves the same thing as custom projection for us. So
Yeah.
Both approach, I think.
Yeah,
At
my
least
question, bringing this kind of custom projection into the SBO would be, what do you think about that?
Yeah, again, that would mean that service binding operator will modify the deployment. And if I understand John correctly, they don't want to. They want to fully control and like the modification of the deployment.
Okay, by the way, that's the intent of this custom projection. It actually doesn't modify your final, resource. Rather, it creates some kind of intermediate resource. It's called service binding projection. So it creates, instead of in our case, we are creating a secret. In the case of spec, it's going to create another custom resource. So this custom resource can be reconciled later by some other operator to inject in the final prod. So this looks like a clean approach, but could be, as I mentioned, it could be a overkill in some case. So there is one more thing available in the spec, but that is still in work in progress for quite some time. I had a PR, I can show you that. So that also could be another option. It's called custom binding, but we have a limited support for the same. But in our case, again, we are injecting that into custom resource. So that's also another possibility. So that means you can specify another resource, custom resource, your own custom resource as the destined path. And, you specify the location, what are the things that you need to inject into. And later you can reconcile from that resource into the final pod. So these are the two options. So one is already available, as I mentioned, but that its approach is slightly different from what is there in this spec. And this PR is already in work in progress for quite some time, so I couldn't get back to that one. So In this, do you have, okay, I don't know whether we have time to explain this thing. Otherwise, I can, maybe in another time I can do.
So I think, John, we probably need to verify that the custom projection that is in the specification is going to fix the problem that you have and that you are facing, and is going to be helpful for you and for your use case.
So to be clear, like the approach of generating an intermediary secret right now is fine for us. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it's sort of mirrored the way custom projection addressed the use case of.
Yeah, I would imagine that if you felt this challenge, you are not the only one with the same need or the same requirement, and the fact that it is already in the spec is also something that has been identified as well. So.
Yeah. No, the only thing that we're missing right now, I think, is the copy the labels to the secret, to the intermediary secret. So that would be nice. We do the same approach for Knative. We don't watch for Knative resources. We watch for replica sets, and there's a one called mapping, and so we don't have to install Knative before the operator, which is nice.
And so, like the service binding you're creating are without application, so to say, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we can implement that label copying, right, Pratak? Any?
Well, technically, it's doable. The question is if it's generic enough for the others to be like useful to implement. Yeah. So where these labels will, I mean, if I understand, John, idea was to have to practically the copy labels, all the labels existing on the service binding into on that secret, right? So I'm fine with that if this is going to help people to identify secrets. So. The question is we want to tweak this a bit more in order to say have some logic which can be executed before, you know, creating those labels and where to define this logic. So how generic this should be to cover, you know, more use cases. Yeah, but interesting idea. Thanks.
Okay, I think maybe we can continue discussion in the issue itself, that issue 852 regarding the same. Any other issue that we need bring into discussion? No? So, Pratak, can we stop now or?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can stop the recording. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, how do we end the recording? Pratak, oh yes. Is this, I can end the call or? Stop recording. Okay, got it.